Hello. This is the first installment of the discussion topics we've been asked to present. I'm Jason Lewis, a graduate student in the GSEN program here at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Today's theme is Fundamentals in Spatial Analysis. It consists of 2 readings. The first comes from a special edition of Journal of Geographical Systems, Volume 5, 2003. It is the introduction to the issue, written by May Po Kwan, Donald Janelle, and Michael Goodchild. The second is the second chapter from the book Landscape Ecology in Theory and Practice, Patterns and Processes. It's written by Monica Turner, Robert Gardner, and Robert O'Neill in 2001. From the first article, Accessibility in Space and Time, a Theme in Spatially Integrated Social Science. It introduces us to the CSISS, the Center for Spatially Integrated Social Science. It's a workshop that CSISS ran, and 6 articles were presented during that workshop. These specifically worked in social science and utilized GIS in their research. This is a listing of the 6 articles, just a brief rundown of what they included. They are grouped by the first and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth. Each of those in their individual study areas, their similar study areas, I should say. Then we went on to the more robust second reading. This was the critical concept of scale. And the most important point from this article is that the scale can modify the results of the study, whichever scale they choose. Here's a quote that really personifies what that is, really indicates what I'm trying to say, because I'm not doing very well. All right, so we have a large scale versus a small scale. As GIS people, we're very familiar with that. A more exact way, maybe a better way for the non-GIS person to understand that is fine versus broad. And then there's the another type of scale, another way to look at scale is absolute scale versus relative scale. They went on to talk about scaling problems that Haggett had presented. There were 3 of these: scale coverage, scale linkage, and scale standardization. The article then goes on to talk about hierarchy. It presents a term that I at least had not heard of, holon. These are individual points on a scale. That's how I'm interpreting them as a GIS person. But basically you have any organism from a single cell, multi-cell, to animal, whatever, to a biome. And then each of these is a holon in the hierarchy. So you have several organisms of the same type. Those are each holons. You can have different biomes. Those are each holons. And obviously they aren't the same type of holon. Biome and an individual organism are not the same type, but it presents the definition of the holon. Then the article goes on to talk about what would be the correct scale. And that's really the meat of the issue. Rather than trying to decide on a single scale, another option is a multi-scale analysis. And lastly, they talk about scaling up. In other words, taking a study of a certain area, and if you increase the size of that area, are you able to proportionally increase the results and assume that they are correct? And King was the first and the primary source that this article looked at. And King said, through his lumping, no, scaling up is not an accurate way to, I should say that you can't just increase the size linearly. He presented two different methods for dealing with that: direct extrapolation and extrapolation by expected value. Um, there were several other ideas that were presented, several other authors, and those were more briefly covered. So that's a very brief rundown of the two articles. Here I have the questions that I've come up with. I came up with 5 specific questions and then a 6th at the bottom that's really more of a miscellaneous option, so that if there is something that you would rather talk about, something I've missed, something that bears scrutiny, by all means, please feel free to post that. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining me today, and I wish you luck in the discussions.